we're playing a game in the NFL, and I'm balling. Man, there's one card. I'm gonna send you a picture next time I see it. I mean, I caught this pass across the middle. A guy was hitting me here. A guy was hitting me there. It was beautiful. In the huddle, so the offensive coordinator, we had Terry Robisky. He was like a hot hand guy. Whoever has the hot hand, we're feeding. I knew I was the first option with the play call. So I, in the huddle, was like, hey, man, you take my spot. I said, hey, you take this. I'm offering an olive branch. We changed position in the huddle. And from that moment, it took 7 years for me to get back to 0 in the NFL. 7 years.
Welcome back to the 5-Star Life Show. I'm your host, Coach Seth, and I am so excited about today's show. If you just tuned in, we have a special guest in the house. I'm going to introduce in a moment, but if you just tuned in, go to 5starlife.org. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, the like button, the share button. You're not going to miss this show because we have a special guest in studio. We have the one and only Rocket Ismail, who was a Notre Dame great, but he is just an incredible human being. He's in town for our 5-Star Life Golf Open. Rocket, welcome to our show.
Thank you very much, Seth. Great to be here.
So, Rocket, I have a bunch of questions,
okay,
but I am so stoked to have you on our show because I love bringing people on our show who are like-minded and who have purpose and passion and drive and who have not only accomplished great things, but they've put a lion's share of their focus on who they are. Right? When we think about achievement, we think about, been talking about breakthrough. That's our theme that we're teaching kids this year, how to break through. And we talk about this idea of, moving beyond just thinking about success and becoming significant. It starts within. But there's a bunch of Notre Dame fans out there listening. They're like, ask some football questions. So I'll start with that. Talk a little bit and try to explain, what was it like when you were just starting out, well, not just starting out, but when you were in that pinnacle, that high point of Notre Dame? What was it like being a college student, a football player at Notre Dame when things are just going crazy for you?
Well, the crazy part only happened from, say, Wednesday to Saturday after the game. And then the rest of the time, it was normal. Because the students, you see them all the time. Everybody sees you. We were talking about this earlier, but at the time, I think the entire student body population in 1988, which was my freshman year, might have been 4,000, 4,500, something like that. And so that's relatively small. Like you pretty much knew the faces. You might not know the names, but you knew pretty much everybody. And you could see if there was a new face in the crowd, like they would stand out, whether it was in the
it's
North Dining
like a high
Hall,
school.
South Dining Hall. It's exactly like a high school. And so that there wasn't any craziness. The craziness also was amplified after the national championship season, 88. That was like, wow, it's a big deal. But I remember when we played Michigan in 89, our second game, and we went up to the big house and then had 2 kickoff returns against them. Like, it was a big deal. And
so you have to Google Rocket in that game and just Google 19. Was it not 90?
It was 89. It was
89. It brought 2 back to the house.
Man, but the thing was, when we talk about just the craziness, I remember this. It's like your brain. So my roommate and I, we lived in Grace Hall, which is no longer a dorm now. So I feel homeless at times when I go back to campus.
There's no home.
The phone rang, and I remember I was I was sleeping, and I used to tell him, because people would be able to find our number and they would call a room. And so he would have to be like the phone police, be like, no, he's not here right now. I can take a message. So a friend of my mother's called, and her name was Saida Latifa. That's like saying Mrs. Latifa. And my friend goes, my roommate takes the message, Rusty, he takes the message, and then he gets off the phone. He goes, dog, Queen Latifah is calling us. And it was like, the reason we would in our brains expect like a rap icon like Queen Latifah to call was because people were calling from all over the country, but it was amplified because back in the day, Sports Illustrated was a big publication. Right. And it was after that Michigan game, we were front and center, the main sports article, but then my picture was on the cover and it had Rocket Man underneath it. Like, it was really cool. So it was like an extra, it was like an extra buzz / craziness. And I remember we laugh about that to this day, but overall it was peaceful. I loved being on campus. It was no, other than I said, like the Wednesday, because that's when the out of town people would come. But other than that, it was a treat.
So I remember that 1989 game because I grew up in Michigan, right? Oh, so being from Michigan,
were you Michigan State or Michigan?
I was a Michigan State fan, but like growing up in Michigan, you hate Notre Dame,
right?
You hate, and so Michigan they were tough, so it was a competitive game.
Oh yeah,
but Rocket. So after that game, I wanted to be Rocket Ismail. So in the like playing ball, two-hand touch. I was Rocket. So there's so many kids across the country that were doing the same thing. Like, he brought two. Like, everybody's Rocket now,
bruh. Let me tell you something. So what you're saying, that's how I was when I saw the first football game I ever saw when my sister was. We went to a Super Bowl party. I was 5 years old, and I remember she was watching a game, and I'm telling you, the television was like 12 inches probably high, 12 inches horizontal, and she's in the middle, and it was sitting on top of two milk crates, and all the grown-ups were just go around her, and like in the sea of grown-ups and firewater, my sister was standing there looking at the game. I didn't know it was a game at the time. So I saw her, and I was like, I'm going to go over there and harass her. And right when I got close to her, it's like I noticed what was on the television. And I understood later that it captured my imagination, which is a whole nother topic. So I remember seeing it, and I was like mesmerized. I was like, wow, what is this? And she said, this is football.
Like, how old were you?
5.
5 years old.
So between birth to 7 years old, you can pretty much program, if you know what you're doing, a child to become anything. So just keep that in mind. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, what is it? She said, it's football. And then she starts explaining it to me. Dallas Cowboys, Pittsburgh Steelers. She said she was a supporter of the Dallas Cowboys. And so it's like something inside me was like, oh, wait a minute. I was offended by her saying she was a supporter of the Cowboys. So I was like, I'm going to support the Pittsburgh Steelers. And why I told you that story was because of what you just said. When I would see any Steeler from that point until I got to Notre Dame, I was that, whatever position I was playing, I was Terry Bradshaw, I was Franco Harris if I was a running back, I was Rocky Blyer if I was a running back, I was Stallworth Swan, I was Green if I'm playing defense, Mel Blunt, Donnie Shell, like that whole dynamic, man. And that was such a blessing to be able to have that type of a, it's like, not that they were mentors or that they were anything in the lane of like having a hands-on, but
sure,
to be able to like have that. And then it was like except for my physical height, all of the gifts that were necessary to become that, it was like, boom. And you know what's crazy? I remember at 5 years old, I started realizing, I was like, oh, I'm fast. Wait a minute. I can catch a tennis ball with one hand. Oh my goodness. I can ride. They had 10 speeds back in the day. I don't know what with the Ram handlebars. It was, but the girls' bikes had the bar slanted instead of straight across.
Yep.
I could ride in that slant. I could ride a 10 speed when I was 5 years old, but I had to ride it in that slant. Like they were all like, it was like all of a sudden all these athletic things started coming.
Sure.
So anyway, I don't want to take up too much time because I know I'm rambling on, son, but that was when you said that just now about what happened after the Michigan game, that brought that back to my memory, man. And it's so cool how all of us humans have that element to us. We can see something, we can inspire one another, and you can inspire people you don't even know you're inspiring.
That's right. Just your actions.
You have no clue.
Just being your best at something.
Bruh.
Yeah. So we got to take a quick commercial break.
Okay.
When we come back, I want you to tell us, like, when did Notre Dame come on your radar? When did you know you wanted to go to Notre Dame?
Okay.
If you are watching this, just remember, you can watch this on YouTube TV at the 5 Star Life. I said YouTube TV. At the 5 Star Life YouTube page, and anywhere podcasts are listened to. We have to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
Did you know that you can bring the values, lessons, and mindsets Coach Seth discusses on the 5 Star Life podcast to your local community? Schools are searching for programs and content that work. Just a simple introduction to your teacher or principal could be a game changer in your community. Inquire at 5starlife.org and someone from our team will be in touch.
Welcome back to the 5 Star Life Show. I'm your host, Coach Seth, and I'm joined in studio with special guest Rocket Ismail, who is one of my childhood favorites. I was, as a kid, in the backyard playing whatever 3-on-3 football or 4-on-4 football at the park. I was running back kicks, being the Rocket.
Yes.
Even though I hated Notre Dame, I became a fan.
So, I just like that part of Notre Dame.
Hey, by the way, do us a favor. If you like this show, if you listen to it 2 or 3 times, hit the subscribe button. That really helps us a lot. Also, hit the like button, share it. Remember, we can be heard on any podcast stream platform out there. Check us out at the 5 Star Life Show. Rocket, tell us, like, football speed was your thing, right? That was your gift.
Right.
But tell us a little bit about when Notre Dame came on your radar. When did you first hear about Notre Dame?
The first time I heard about Notre Dame was when man, you got to ask me about how we got to Pennsylvania. It's a divine, I think it'll inspire a lot of people to pray for generations that they don't meet yet. But I don't digress, but I'll finish the question. So
No, I got to start there.
Okay. So
how did you get to Pennsylvania?
Yo, check this out. So my dad, he passes away. I'm 10 years old. My brother's 8 and 7, 6, 5. So all or 5. So now all of the responsibility, and back then you didn't have insurance, and especially living in the hood. So like that wasn't on your radar. It was like, man, moment to moment, hand to mouth, that kind of situation, right? And my father was a Muslim. We were Muslim. We were Sunni Muslims. My father was a sheikh. He, from the time I can remember, he started 3 masjids. My sister told me he had about 2 other ones. And so, and Waller, well, you don't know Warathdin Muhammad, Farrakhan, but Elijah Muhammad.
Yes.
He had a bunch of masjids across the country, right. And we used to go to attend masjid number 25 on South Orange Avenue in Newark, New Jersey, and we used to go to Sister Clara Muhammad Elementary School, and my father would teach all of the leadership how to speak Arabic and to pronounce the words properly. So I'm just giving you a background on just how we came up. And so my father dies, and it's a shock. It is like the same injury that I had that ended my football career killed my father. Was he died on the operating table from it. And we could talk about generational stuff. Man, this could be a fire podcast. Anyway, so I remember he died, and like now the burden is on my mother. So 10, 8, 5, my brothers and I, and we were, let's see, my father was a disciplinarian. So like we couldn't go from in front. We lived in the new version of the projects. It was called Georgia King Village. It was like connected townhomes, and it was really nice. But my father was like, and this is before crack. This is before the devil really entered the environment and obliterated everybody that was there. And I remember my father was disciplined. My mother wasn't. Not that my mother wasn't. She was. When my father was alive, she could be the nice person.
Sure.
But when he died, now she had to kind of integrate
both.
And it was a lot for her. My 77-year-old grandmother steps in and says, hey, and check it out. Right after my father died, we moved to Detroit. My mother's family migrated from Mississippi to Detroit. We moved to Detroit for 6 months, let my mother kind of get on her feet and things of that nature. So I have some Michigan in my background as well. And I remember my 77-year-old grandmother, my patriarch, my paternal grandmother, lived in Pennsylvania, and she loved the Lord. Like her and my father, it was like a tradition. Every time we went to visit my grandmother, they would get in an argument about Jesus. And
so from the Muslim and Christian side.
From the Muslim Christian side, from the black white side.
Was it congenital or was it a war?
No, you know what? My father, he had restraint because my grandmother, she's little, but it was like Lawrence. Don't call me Lawrence. That's a white man's name. Call me Ibrahim. So, because he renamed himself Ibrahim, he was born Lawrence Skinner. Okay. My name technically, because I'm the oldest son, could be Larry Skinner right now. You could be talking to Larry Skinner right now. I'm just saying, just meditate on that. So, all of a sudden, I remember we get on with my grandmother comes on and picks us up in her green Oldsmobile. And this is no exaggeration. Her head could not see over the steering wheel. This car was massive. It's about the size of it. It would fit wall to wall in this room. We're driving back to Wilkes-Barre, and my grandmother's only rule was, I don't care. She's like, hey, in this house we go to church, and we used to walk up to the First Assembly of God, so forth and so on. Got there. Got integrated into the community, and I and my brother and our next door neighbor, Freddie Lewis, were going to try out for the Mini Mohawks, which was the Pop Warner football team. And my brother and I was so hype because when we lived in Newark, imagine the Fat Albert in the gang. Imagine when they were in the junkyard playing football and one guy had an elbow pad, the other guy had a cleat, the other guy had a thigh pad, the other guy had the pants with no pad. Like, that's how it looked. Mm-hmm. We went from that to all of a sudden, the Mini Mohawks, Freddie Lewis told us they had bike helmets. And Herschel Walker, and I think Herschel Walker and Earl Campbell had bike helmets. Mm-hmm. We were like, ooh, it's about to be on. All of a sudden, we get there. I'm either 2 weeks too old or 2 days too old. And it was I probably could cry right now, but it was one of the most emotionally devastating moments of my young life. And he was just kind of flippant, like, hey, just go across the street to the high school. And they have freshman tryouts next week. And I was so crushed that.
And you were how old at this point?
So we're in 10. I'm 10.
You're 10.
11.
You're 11 years old.
So how old is 11? No, maybe I'm 12.
That's 5th grade. 12 is maybe 6th grade.
What's 7th grade?
Yeah, probably 13.
Okay, maybe it's a minute ago. I'm in my 50s now, so it was like we went.
You might have been 14, maybe 13, 14.
7th, 8th, 9th grade, I was on freshman.
Okay, freshman. Yeah.
So
you're 14, 15, somewhere in there.
Okay.
In 7th grade, you were on the freshman team?
Yeah, because I couldn't be on them anymore.
Okay, so you're 12 years old.
I'm 12.
You're supposed to be playing Pop Warner, but they send you across the street because you're too old.
Right, because I'm 2 weeks too old. Like my birthday was a weird time.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I was 7 days old, something like that, because Kadri was born in 1970. I'm 69, and he's November 8th. I'm November 18th. Bruh. So he makes the team. I don't. I'm dejected, man. I cried for the next 2 days. I started walking when they got their equipment. I'm probably 30 yards in front of them, and I'm trying to cry without like making my head shake up and down. Like I'm walking, I'm so devastated. And we get home, and I'm still devastated. My grandma, what's wrong? I ate a big tea. And so go back to. I'm trying to fast forward the story. I go back the next week to the high school. I meet a guy, Brian Dwyer. We both knew his dad wants him to play for that coach, the local coach, Mickey Gorham, who actually, and I didn't know this. He never even told me, even when Notre Dame was in the picture. He graduated from Notre Dame 68. He was on the football team the whole time. So get over there, and we become good friends. And then his dad, who was a volunteer coach, I didn't know this, diehard Notre Dame fan, we get a chance to sleep over his house after my grandmother vets them. And my first introduction to Notre Dame was the first time we slept over his house, almost died on a dirt bike the night before, I just want to say. So we are in the basement, and we fall asleep playing ColecoVision. And it was either the Superman or the Spider-Man game. And man, it was like it was the modern technology, but we were like, while we were knocking on the ground, I'm on the ground, I have a dream. As I'm dreaming, I'm in this aromatic field, and this lovely, whatever this fragrance is, I'm smelling it in this field, and I'm dreaming. And then all of a sudden, it's interrupted, and it's like, the University of Notre Dame proudly presents its marching band. And I abruptly wake up. They had Lazy Boys back in the day. And it was the 1982 version of a man cave. So we're in their basement, and Mr. Dwyer is, I don't know if you ever saw the cartoon Mr. Magoo. He looked like a redhead version of Mr. Magoo. He was on there. He was smoking his pipe, which is where the aroma came from, and he was right next to his record player. And that bad boy, when I woke up, he said, "You hear that, laddie buck? That's the finest band in the land. Get over here. Let me tell you about the Fighting Irish." And the rest was history.
That was your introduction to Notre Dame right there.
That was my introduction to Notre Dame. There's a lot of little nuances and everything, but that was my introduction. I still need to tell you about something else about Wilkes-Barre.
We'll take that up when we come back after the next break. Be sure to check us out at 5starlife.org.
5 Star Life is a not-for-profit organization dedicated to changing the face of culture by changing kids' mindsets. Since 2005, we've impacted hundreds of thousands of lives thanks to the generous support of individuals, small businesses, corporations, and foundations. Are you interested in helping 5 Star Life grow into all 50 states? With your donation or introduction, you can help bring 5 Star Life to your community, school, and state. Go to 5starlife.org and send us an email today. That's FIVESTARLIFE.org.
Welcome back to the 5 Star Life Show. I'm your host, Coach Seth, and I'm joined in studio with special guest, the Rocket, the fastest college football player, actually the fastest college collegiate human being. When he was in college, he was the fastest.
Except I was always, because and this just came from track, because they used to run a 55 meters. Now they run 60 meters. Man, that's a great life lesson. Oh, let's Let's talk about that. But let's talk about this other one first. I know I'm jumping around. But
All right. So talk about you were about to tell us about one other like kind of foundational.
Yes. This was not
benchmark.
kind of. This was.
Okay.
Check this out. So 13, 14, somewhere in there, my mother, she would send us. Do you remember when long distance cost money?
Oh yeah.
So my mother would send us calling cards.
Yep.
And
Man, I forgot about calling cards.
man, I'm telling you, Russ, a lot. And
I didn't use them. I do the quick. You dial 0.
800.
Or dial 800 something, and then if you could just like leave a message, like you could basically, it would ask you. Well, I'd make a collect call.
Okay.
Right, make a collect call. If I need to ride home.
Right.
And instead of being charged for that call, when you'd leave your name, that would you receive a collect call for, instead of saying Seth Moss, I said, "Mom, come get me quick." I'm at school. I'd get as much as I could in.
Are you serious?
To save money. Yeah.
Okay, that's what's up, bro. On a budgeting tip, son. So, okay, we had the calling card. It was Easter break, and which is the spring break for like the East Coast. And I remember we called the telephone booth. That's funny. We called the telephone booth in front of our house, and somebody in the neighborhood would just pick up, and we're like, "Hey, it's Rocky Ben Kadri," and they're like, "Yo, what's good?" Blah blah blah, and so we start saying, "Hey, how's so and so? What's going on?" And as they were giving us the report, all of a sudden they're like, "Man, there's this drug called crack cocaine," and they started telling us about the ravages of crack cocaine, and they were seeing like violence, like the level of violence that it's on now, whether it's in Chicago or any black neighborhood that's predominantly black and it's like hood hip hop influence. Like crack gave birth to all of this, and they were seeing that. They were seeing the murders. They were seeing the mothers get strung out, and so strung out that the drug dealers didn't want to have sex with them anymore, so they'd bring their little daughters to have sex with them instead, like stuff like that. Seeing people get murdered, like used to fight. Now you had guns start showing up, and it was just extra lascivious, extra violent. Like it was in my mind. I imagined it felt like a demonic horde came out of hell, destination, any city that had crack USA, and Newark was where we were. All of a sudden, as whoever I'm talking to is describing what's going on, I remember I said in my heart, I was like, "Man, Lord, how did we escape that?" Like that was just as I'm on the phone, all of a sudden, bam, I'm in a vision. I am on the phone, but I'm in a whole nother place at the same time simultaneously. And it was a field. This is everything I saw. I was in the field. So imagine it being a football field, and say the football field is tilled, like the soil is tilled, and it's all dirt, but it's turned over dirt, and it's like getting ready to have seed planted. The football field, or the field that I was in, was surrounded by evergreen trees, and they were standing, like, if you will, shoulder to shoulder, as they were like sentries, like protecting what was in the field. I looked up, and there were only there was one other supernatural time. I didn't know it was a supernatural time. This was in present reality, that I saw the sky this blue. It was like a blue that was not of this earth. It was crystal clear. And I remember looking around like, what is happening? And then I remember I looked down to my left, and it was this old black woman on her knees in a posture of prayer. And I looked at her. I couldn't hear anything she was saying, but I instantly knew everything about her. I knew it was an ancestor of mine, and I knew the answer to the question in my heart that I indited when that I lifted up for the Most High when I asked, how did we avoid that? Her prayers, I was living out the answer to her prayers, and her praying for her progeny that would inhabit this new land was what was going on. I knew all that. Then boom, I'm back on the phone. I'm like, oh snap! Like, and so they tell him, but it was like that. I was like, oh man, literally that's divine intervention.
Divine intervention. Some people don't believe in that.
Oh man, they cannot believe it.
Some people don't believe in it.
But bruh, let me tell you something. Anybody out here who has children or in plans to have grandchildren and your generation is going, man, pray for the family that you will never see, because I'm living with my brothers and I, and it didn't like it doesn't make life like you don't have any issues, no problems come along or anything like that. But I'm telling you, the moments that the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy, and you're in his direct line of sight, and he's ready to take you out prematurely, man, it's going to save you from those. And you don't even know you need saving. Like, I had no clue.
Right.
So that was
incredible.
That was a huge foundational moment, man. It was incredible, man. I was
understanding that there's others who've gone before you, and that you are somehow. Was it that you were protected? Was it that you were loved? Was it that you felt there was this divine intervention on your behalf?
All of the above. And this is the other thing that I knew. I knew that in spite of the slave master's best efforts to present the scripture in from a cultural view that benefited them, she was able to tap into a higher level of her divine birthright. And because she was able to, we were able to, and we didn't even know we were doing it. Mm-hmm. So that was talking about a foundational building point. That was a big one.
It's a big deal. So I want to shift over. Okay. Talked about ancestors and people that have influenced you.
Right.
What about coaches?
Okay.
Talk about the influence coaches have had in your life.
I'm going to tell you another foundational moment to answer that. We are in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. Freddie Lewis is next door neighbor. He's telling us about his ability to do a 1.5 somersault dive into the pool off the low diving board. Like, man, you can't do no 1.5. And I was like, man, I can just flip right here on the concrete. We used to call it flipping when we were in Newark. We get the dirty mattresses out and just learn how to flip, then go to the grass, then go to the concrete, and then you get a nut. So I'm telling you, I was athletic. I could never do a full twist though. Anyway, so all of a sudden,
I've got Rocket on the show, and he's telling me he's athletic. That is so funny.
Yo, bro, I'm telling you, I could never do it. How much time? All right. So I would definitely like to pick this up. I don't want to do it any injustice because it's going to lead into you asking about the coaches and the people who mentors and things of that nature.
Good. We'll pick that up just after this. Go to 5starlife.org. Please remember to like this, subscribe to this, share this.
5-Star Life offers year-round programs for kids at our 350-acre training facility that we call Summit. These programs focus on 3 core components. First, each program includes lessons from our curriculum that targets kids' mindset. Secondly, each program teaches a skill like equine, archery, blacksmithing, basketball, fishing, boating, and many more. Thirdly, our programs connect kids to mentors we call coaches who are trained to help kids live a 5-star life. Go to 5starlife.org to learn more or sign up your kids.
Welcome back to the 5-Star Life Show. I'm your host, Coach Seth, and I'm joined in studio. We're continuing our conversation with Rocket Ismail. Rocket, thanks so much for joining us. We got one more segment here. Okay. And I want to wrap up. I always ask guests this question. 5-Star Life is really focusing on getting to the core of kids, their operating system, their mindset, right? And changing that, creating health. And so we're teaching these values, these core values: respect, treating others the way you want to be treated. But you first have to respect yourself. Responsibility, taking ownership. That's the key word we use. Take ownership of our past choices, our current reality, our future dreams. Integrity, who you are when nobody's looking, the real you. Sacrifice, giving up something now for something better later on, or giving up something I want to do selfishly, just thinking about me, to serve somebody else, to be a servant leader, to help somebody else live a 5-star life. And then the fifth one ties them all together, courage, which we define as having the strength to do what's right rather than what's popular or comfortable. If you could take yourself back to your 12-year-old self, and if you could pick one value that you wish you would have built and had a better foundation in one of these values, which one would it be and why?
So I'm going to start from the back and go to the 12-year-old. So you said not being selfish. So one of the things that I learned the hard way, and it's interesting, when I learned this, I was like, man, I judged Esau, who gave up his birthright for some porridge, right? Like I said, my default personality is people pleaser. And I remember when I got to the NFL, there was a lot of hubbub about getting to the NFL. I was making way more money than all the other guys because they were still on their rookie contracts or whatever. And I just got there, and I remember one of the players voiced their displeasure with their situation, but it felt like he was, and I think he could sense, because he was like, hey man, nothing against you, but blah, 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 blah. And I remember like feeling that, and it felt like I didn't know how to guard my heart, first of all. And I didn't know I didn't know I was a people pleaser. I thought I was just a nice guy. And I was like trying to figure out how to make this guy see that I'm a good guy and I'm not the enemy. We're playing a game in the NFL and I'm balling. Man, there's one card, I'm gonna send you a picture next time I see it. There's one card that every time I see it, I was like, man, Lord, I caught this pass across the middle. A guy was hitting me here, a guy was hitting me there. It was beautiful. And it's two cards.
I know the picture.
Oh, okay, okay.
Oh yeah, you're getting crunched.
Oh yeah. So in the huddle, so the offensive coordinator, we had Terry Robisky. He was like a hot hand guy. Whoever has the hot hand, we're feeding them. I had the hot hand. I'm in the huddle, and we had a pretty simplistic numbering system. It started, I think, either from left to right to left, something like that. But if you get in the huddle and they say 1, 2, 3, 1 is the X receiver, 2 is the tight end, 3 is the Z receiver. So it came in, and I knew I was the first option with the play call. So I, in the huddle, was like, hey man, you take my spot. I'm thinking I'm being unselfish. I'm thinking, and children need to know this because they don't realize the depth and the gravity of a birthright that we come into this earth with. And put it this way, unless you stole something from somebody, you never give up your birthright. I don't care how selfish they telling you being. No, you always stay where God called you to be.
You're saying if you have an opportunity, if you have a rightful place that somebody's offered you and given you, or you've earned, don't give that up.
I didn't earn it. The Lord gave it to me.
Yes.
I was born supposed to be in this position. Yes. That was I didn't have any understanding about all this stuff then. So I'm saying when I heard you say selfish or be unselfish, I'm like, yeah, to a point. That can get convoluted if you don't give insight that from experience like I'm giving you. So
which comes back to when you know who you are and have a healthy identity.
Yes. And
that's
you
not an issue.
Not only do you know who you are, but you also know what comes with that and the office that you hold, and you're not supposed to get that up unless the Lord come down and say, hey, get that up. All I have to say, fast forward, in the huddle, I said, hey, you take this. Like, I'm like, yo, I'm offering an olive branch. The heck with that. That mug, he was like, I bet. We changed position in the huddle. And from that moment, it took 7 years for me to get back to 0 in the NFL. 7 years. So I'm just saying, I wish I would have known that when I was a youngster, that and you know what, maybe I was a people pleaser because of the fear. And then when there wasn't any kind of, it's kind of like you just appease the bully. You're like, hey man, I'm not trying to cause no waves.
Sure.
Yo, you can have whatever you want. And then I do remember when my father died, I was 10, but I was like, I had the man at a house label, but I was like, okay, I don't know. There's no men around. I don't know how to be a man. So I felt insecure because of that. And then I felt insecure because it was just me and, you know, stuff like that. So anyway, I don't know how to word that in a way where you can succinctly tell the young ones, hey, this is what he's saying and this is how to implement it in your life. But when I look, if I'm my 12-year-old self, I'd be like, hey, no. Certain things, bro, no. And this is, and I wasn't 12 yet, so I wasn't able, when I was 12, I still wasn't able to fight the devils and I didn't know how to do all that. But if I could get to the 12-year-old self, I'd be like, yo, bro, you got some powerful stuff in you. This how you protect it. This how you guard it. And this how you make sure you don't
abdicate it.
You don't get out of order and give that dab thing up.
Yes.
So that's something overlooked that a lot of us don't realize. Man, put it this way, there's greater, each generation, everybody in here is supposed to do a greater level of shining. The scripture says the life of Christ is the light of men. We're supposed to shine in this earth. And that fall that happened in the garden when we went after knowledge of good and evil, instead of life, there was a diminishing of our capacity to shine, but we still have the capacity to shine.
That's right.
And there's just like the universe has a constellation, and they can say in 600 years, this star is going to be here to there. Right. Everything in this doggone universe, even in a fallen universe, has order to it. There's an order that you have to understand about yourself and about what you've given, what's been given you, and the greatness that's supposed to manifest from you. And you also have to know that just like there's greatness and you're supposed to shine, there's great opposition when you come into this earth realm. There's great opposition against you. And it will try its best to subtly seduce you to think that it's not opposition. And say, oh yeah, don't be selfish. Man, go ahead, give him your position. Man, he just one route. The devil is a whole bunch of lies. So I'm just saying, that is very important, and I want your young ones to know that. I want them not to forget that.
Yeah, it's so good, especially for kids or people out there who you're naturally a people pleaser, which I always tell. I mean, it's our greatest strengths are also our greatest weaknesses, right? Yes. Because you're so dynamic with people because you care so much about people, right? And so it's this balance. And so I just tell people, listen, it's so important because I've done the same thing because you want to inspire and encourage, but then there's this time where you know exactly what has to be done and you're the person for it and you can't give it up. Otherwise, everybody loses.
Man. And to this day, like I was talking to my wife about this the other day, I was like, man, I can still see residue in my life and my children's lives because of that moment. Like it's like I don't know. I was reading the scripture the other day and it was talking about the severity of God, right? And so when I saw that, I was like, ooh, yo, this it's serious, man. The love is great and joy and peace. But yo, man, because of the formidable weapon and enemy that's against us, man, there's certain things that you cannot do. And when you do them, the consequences, even little residue from it can stay with you longer than you thought they would.
Well said. Hey, Rocket, thank you so much for joining you. Joining you. Thank you so much for joining us.
That's right.
I love your passion. I love your fire. Such a unique and inspirational person. And I really appreciate you being a part of this and helping kids and believing in the mission of 5 Star Life.
Amen. Thank you, brother.
That's it. We're out of time. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be sure to like this, share this, subscribe to this. Remember, you can listen to this podcast on any streaming platform, also on YouTube at The 5 Star Life. Thanks so much.
At 5 Star Life, we are changing the face of culture through education and sports by changing the most important piece of a human being's life, their mindset. If you are interested in being a part of our journey, please visit 5starlife.org for more information on volunteer and donation opportunities.